Yeah.
Did you come down with something? Sorry. You just like you a big secret. I'm not worried about it. I've already had every tree out
You have.
This is-
He's on his way.
there. I'm sorry, but I'm glad that you're doing better.
So he's on his way and we can start, is what you said?
Yeah.
Charles can catch up.
Did all right.
Okay, well then apparently he's not gonna be present.
Hey, Chad,
We can wait if you like.
When it starts at 6.
I didn't know the plan. I'm sorry.
Justine,
Yes.
can we get, he already left. I was gonna ask Hutch to shut that door.
Oh, yes.
But then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, we do too.
Oh,
You don't know this, but everybody on the camera over an hour
Yeah.
could hardly breathe.
Yeah, but you gotta keep.
I know.
Yeah. I'm doing all right. Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
are we gonna be measured up to a certain height?
That's the way to do it too, and that's the way I used to go through my budgets.
But he's never. It's nice to see you today. From afar.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see you every day.
You didn't, really, you didn't have much to say at the meeting, neither did I today.
You know, I was mainly just taking it all in because that was my first one. And I really enjoyed it and I didn't think I would. Were you listening or did somebody just tell you?
No, I was
5
listening.
seconds.
I was online, yes, sir. I was online.
Well, I wanted to say a lot, but I thought I would just sponsor my own.
I'm calling the April 18th, 2023 Budget Committee to order. Is there any declaration of interest? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the nomination of our chairman. Anyone like to make a nomination?
Carrie, who was our chairman last year?
It wasn't you, you turned me down, so I can't remember.
Nope. You can vote for Charles, he's not here.
Can
And it'll be here just a few minutes, so if you hurry up.
we,
Oh, no, he's not able to make it?
can we
nominate
nominate
Justine?
Justine?
Okay. What?
Nominate Justine?
No, she's the budget officer.
Thank you.
And she's not on the committee. We're talking 8 people
I
here.
nominate Eric.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a nomination and a second for Eric. All those in favor? Aye. All those against?
Aye. Do they know that?
7 yea, 1 nay. Eric, you are now in charge of this whole meeting.
Oh, truly?
Yes, so-
Is that what it means?
Yes, you're going to do the nomination for a secretary and an election,
Okay.
and then you follow the script and it's up to you.
All right, I call for nominations for secretary.
I nominate Sharon Flipper. What do I have to do?
You have to keep notes of the fact that we've just nominated you and Eric has been nominated, and then you have to continue on. I second.
Wait, it's on.
No, I can help you with that.
Oh, okay.
So Christie is online as well.
Okay.
And we're recording.
Okay.
So, and we're going to be taking some notes, but if you take some additional notes as well, and then we'll confer with you when the minutes come out and just make sure things are correct. That should be the most of it. Am I missing anything, Ms. Justine? Okay.
And Sharon, traditionally, the budget narrative can be used because I read it, so it can be used as the minutes.
So you, Eric, you have a.
Yep, so all in favor of Sharon Tucker being secretary, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Sharon, I think I got the better end of that deal.
It's like a game of Uno, really.
Yeah. right. receiving of a budget message. That's a budget narrative.
It is our regular, we have a message in our, yep, I'll take it over from here.
Okay, I'm turning this over to Justine.
Perfect. So the budget document is in front of you. There is also a budget narrative that I like to prepare that goes through each page and kind of some significant or what I think might be just something that should mention from last year to this year. We will read the budget message out loud. I put post-it notes and highlighters. I think that as we go through the budget, if you highlight or put a post-it note, then in the next 2 weeks when you're home, you can go back and revisit, like, what did that mean? You know, if that triggered something, what did that mean? We will have a budget question and answer meeting after we hear all of this, just for the budget committee. And then at our next meeting, we will do the state revenue shares. We'll send all the grant applications out to you a few days before to look over. And we'll have a public hearing at that May meeting where the budget committee decides how to distribute those state revenue share funds for grant organizations that have submitted. And we will approve or schedule another meeting at that point. So that's kind of how it's going to go today. I really want to be respectful of your time, and it's really
Justine, what's the difference between the budget message and the budget narrative?
the budget message is a legal document required to put with the budget that's just sums up the significant things that are happening maybe in the community or in the budget. The budget narrative is simply my notes to you as a reader to try to help you that we made a change in that line, or there was a significant revenue change or something there. So it's more of a note,
Okay,
the narrative, and the message is really the heart of the budget.
is the legal,
Yes.
thank you.
So the budget document, we have the table of contents, we have a budget calendar, and then we have a budget message, which I will read. The budgeting process provides an annual opportunity to evaluate the city's needs and establish a financial pathway to achieve them. We want our community to be safe, inclusive, and resilient while being financially solvent. The Planning Commission statement that the city's comprehensive plan should be used as a guide to decision-making regarding development, sustainability, and environmental stewardship is taken seriously throughout the budget process. The city of Gearhart will need to focus and prioritize to meet future financial obligations. The city of Gearhart has been striving to provide efficient and effective services. Over the last few years, the transition in staffing, the addition of newly created positions, and the cost of living increases have impacted personnel costs. The city understands that there must be a balance between financial feasibility, livable wages, and attracting and retaining employees. This budget cycle, the city will be evaluating salary placements and job responsibilities. And in terms of immediate personnel financial impacts, there are 4 areas of focus. Salaries in the police department have been updated in the budget to reflect duties and levels of responsibility more appropriately. The annual cost of living increase is 8.7%, which impacts all salaries and associated payroll costs. The employee handbook dictates that the salary schedule will be adjusted based on the current cost of living, which we will call COLA. The city uses the COLA rate established each January by the Social Security Administration. There will be a substantial increase in the public employees retirement system, employer contribution rates. Effective July 1st, 2023, the city will see an increase in all 3 benefit programs. Tier 1, Tier 2 members will increase 4.56% to 25.10%. OPSERV General Service members will increase 5.31% to 18.22%, and OPSERV Police and Fire members will increase 5.74% to 23.01%. This increase will be in effect for the upcoming biennium. There is no change in full-time equivalency. However, there is a redistribution between funds for all the 3 public works positions and a fund change for the building position. In 2021, Senate Bill 866 relating to building code enforcement changed regulations and reporting requirements. The state has placed emphasis on government entities that specifically contract with third-party building officials. Because the city currently operates under this type of provision, it is required to ensure and verify that all fees collected for plan review, permit issuance, or administrating and enforcing specialty codes are used to support the building department. The most effective way to do this is by creating a special fund. General Fund 1011 Building Department will no longer be used, and transactions will now be in Special Fund 40 Building, Structural, Plumbing, and Mechanical. The city's water operating fund requires financial attention. This fund is required to be operated in a manner similar to a private business enterprise, with the intent that the cost of providing water service to the public be recovered primarily through user charges. It is also common industry practice for municipal water utilities to have a minimum operating reserve equal to or greater than 90 days of operating expenses. The city of Gerhardt's water operating fund is in a declining state of financial health. If some form of financial correction is not implemented, the fund is in jeopardy of producing a negative ending fund balance, which is a violation of budget law. Costs to operate, maintain, and improve the water system have increased without an increase in the revenue stream. The last water rate increase was implemented almost 10 years ago in 2013 by the City Council, Ordinance 874. Because it is projected that the water operating fund is on a financially unstable course, a transfer of up to $197,617.50 from the Water Reserve Fund has been placed in the budget to provide a supplemental revenue source. This transfer is critical and will provide the necessary resources to keep the operating fund balanced. A specialized water rate professional has been hired to conduct a comprehensive water rate study. The broad objective of the study is to adequately fund water utility operations and infrastructure costs and promote conservation while minimizing rates to the greatest degree possible. If a rate increase is the most viable solution to adequately support the water operating fund, and the city council agrees, increased revenue and water meter receipts account could offset the transfer for the water reserve fund without any complicated budget adjustments. The 2023-24 transfer is a temporary financial solution. There has been no appropriations for the Water Improvement Construction Fund. All resources have been transferred in the City Council approved Resolution 984 authorizing the closure of this fund. It will remain in the budget until the historical data requirements are met. The city feels strongly about maintaining adequate reserve funds, however, not at the risk of impacting current services and programs. Adjustments have been made to reserve transfer amounts to maintain stability. The only transfer in the general fund is for up to $60,000 to the fire apparatus and equipment reserve fund. Eliminated resource transfers include $15,000 to the police car reserve, $30,000 to the hazardous mitigation fund, $100,000 to the building reserve fund, $100,000 to the water reserve fund, and $20,000 to the public works major equipment reserve fund. It is important to remember that transfers are only made when revenue targets are met. The city is still navigating the process of correctly spending the American Rescue Plan funds. These funds, which the city has received $362,935.78, must be spent on very specific types of projects. Resources have already been received in previous fiscal years, and the expenditures are listed in the budget as Grant CSLFRF, American Rescue Plan projects, and they're in the General Fund, the Water Reserve Fund, and the Gerhardt Road District. In May 2022, Gerhardt voters rejected the ballot measure to fund a new fire police general obligation bond. Last year's Capital Project Fund 80 was created. However, due to the failure of the bond measure, it was not approved by the Budget Committee and it has been removed from the budget. The 2023-24 budget is balanced and projected to meet anticipated expenditures. However, continued increases in operational costs coupled with regulatory payroll costs will continue to strain Gerhardt's financial stability. Our departments are dedicated to providing quality service to our community and will continue to work diligently on financial stability. The City Council is dedicated to maintaining the integrity of the community and strives to create a safe, healthy environment for everyone to enjoy. Okay. Next, we'll move to the budget. And we're going to start on page 1. A budget document is a written guideline outlining the city's comprehensive fiscal plan for the next operating year. Oregon budget law specifies a process and recommended format for the city's annual budget. The accounting system is structured to maintain the identity of the revenues, which are also called resources, and expenditures for each fund. This is accomplished by providing a balancing set of accounts. Every fund within our budget must balance, which means that the revenues must equal the expenditures. The city uses a cash basis for accounting. The City of Gerhardt's budget has the following fund categories. We have our general fund, which is the largest fund, and it has the most transactions. It documents the general operating revenues and expenditures and is considered the city's primary accounting fund. The City of Gerhardt's general fund, which is number 10, is submitted into departments. So we have the administrative, the police, the fire, non-departmental, municipal court, planning, and parks. Building will no longer be in the general fund because it's been relocated to a newly created fund in the budget, Fund 40. There's the debt service fund. Debt service fund 20 accounts for general long-term debt obligations. These expenditures are the principal and interest payments due for the construction of the water treatment facility. All information regarding the proposed fire police facility has been removed because it was not approved by the voters. Enterprise funds, these funds are used to account for business-like activities provided to the general public. These activities are financed primarily through user charges, and the measurement of the financial activity focuses on net income measurements similar to the private sector. The city has the Water Operating Fund 30 and Water Reserve Fund 71, and the Water Construction Fund has been removed because that project had been completed. But it also has to remain for the 3 years for historical retention purposes. Special funds, these funds account for special revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for specific purposes to finance particular functions or activities in the city. The City of Gerhardt has a building, structural plumbing and mechanic, that's new, mechanical. State revenue sharing, Fund 45, State Street Fund 60, Public Works Equipment Reserve Fund, and the General Road District Fund. Capital projects funds, these funds are for financial resources used to acquire or construct major capital facilities and or acquire capital assets. The City of Gerhardt has the Police Car Fund 72, Fire Apparatus and Equipment Reserve Fund 74, Hazard and Mitigation Fund 75, Building Reserve Fund 79. And again, we had Fund 80 created to document revenues and expenditures for the construction, and it's been removed. The overall format of the budget remains the same, but there have been some refinements on description, headings, and we have combined some accounts. Department heads were encouraged to merge similar accounts while still maintaining the transparency of the type of purchase. Work to maintain account description uniform across the departments and eliminate accounts that are not necessary. Please note that only important or significant things will be presented during the budget meeting. However, requests for additional information are absolutely welcome. Before I begin discussing specifics, I want to just give a little bit overview of the payroll cost factors because they impact most of the funds. So I don't want to say it each time. So we're just going to eliminate the redundancy of that by hearing it one time because payroll is a large expenditure in our budget. The budget has been prepared with the following assumptions. The city of Deer is budgeting an 8.7% COLA, salary increase with anniversary steps when it is applicable to that individual employee, which is established. We use the Social Security Administration rate, and the steps are sanctioned in the employee handbook. Workers' comp rates have been increased by a projected 5%. Retirement, again, we mentioned in the budget message that the public employee system, they are increasing. So I list the rates again there that are going up. Insurance benefits, which include medical, dental, vision, life, accidental death and dismemberment, and long-term disability, are provided through a state organization, CIS, the City County Insurance Services. And they provide options for cities to choose from for their employees. Insurance is only provided to full-time employees, and the budget includes a monthly employer contribution of up to $2,483.88 per employee. Rate increases are estimated at 5%. Unemployment rates and workers' assessment benefit fund tax have been budgeted with very slight increases from current rate. The city is aware of the Oregon New Paid Family Medical Leave Act. Employees have to pay. It is not in our budget because employee are considered a small employer, so we don't have to pay our portion right now. We're going to move to page 1 and 2, general fund resources 10. So this is our revenue sources. Resources line 1, the beginning fund balance, cash on hand. The city is anticipating a strong ending fund balance. Key factors for this are continued strong transient room tax collections and revenues received from previous fiscal years but were not spent by June 30th, which include things like Duncan's Crossing, pickleball, American Rescue, and $20,000 park and bench project check we received. Resources line 2, property tax was budgeted at a 3% increase with a reduction for discounts and other uncollectible amounts. The city's permanent tax rate is $1.0053 per thousand of assessed value. And at this point, talking to the Clatsop County Assessor's Office, they don't see any significant impacts on property tax coming up. Resources line 4, 5, and 6, building. New legislation requires the city to track these differently, so they are no longer here. We will need them for historical reference, and if you want to know why I left number 6 in their mechanical permits, that's a newly created account, and we will have historical data on it this year that goes in there in the 2022-23 budget, so we just left it in there. Resources lines 12, 13, 14, and 15, grants have had allocations eliminated, but must remain for historical requirements. So we have gotten these grants in the past, and we just have to track them. Resources line 16, grants restricted, has been allocated and increased. This allows the city a quick and easy way to accept future grants. It provides appropriations for specific restricted grants that haven't been awarded, and they are classified as potential future grants. So this means that we appropriate the revenues for it and we appropriate expenditures for it, so that when somebody gets a $6,000 grant, we don't have to have any type of special meeting or anything. Council may have to approve it or with a resolution process, but we can accept it into the budget. Resources line 17, interest. The Federal Reserve officials raised the federal fund rates in March for the second time this year, following 7 consecutive rate increases in 2022. Higher interest rates raise costs for borrowers, but they can mean higher yields for interest savings, which we have definitely seen. The city's investments are all in the local government investment pool, which has continued to show rate increases since June of 2022. Resources line 19. Conflagration and mobilization allocations are revenues reimbursed by the state of Oregon for Gerhart firefighters and equipment that are deployed to wildfire incidences. Resources line 30, marijuana tax has been adjusted. The city received a large payment from the state of Oregon in the 21-22 year for local tax being collected incorrectly at the state level. They were collecting our local tax and holding it. So that was for over a several year period. So it was a large payment, but it was a large payment for money held over, several years back. The historical data reflects this large one-time payment, but based on what we're currently receiving, we have 2 marijuana shops in the city of Gerhart. We're lowering those from over last year. Resources line 32, transient room tax continues to be a very lucrative revenue source for us. After 2 consecutive strong years of revenue collections, this revenue account is being increased. And overall, the general fund resources have a 3.28% budget increase. So that's the revenues. We're going to talk about the general fund expenditures. I'm going to go to page 3 and 4. Administrative Department 1010. This fund is supportive of all departments within the general fund. Collaborative costs that are not easily identified by department. So things like utilities, office equipment, insurance, and office supplies are charged to this category because we necessarily can't divide out telephone service or something like that. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Personnel services expenditures line 5 salary. The temporary part-time allocations have been removed. Materials and services expenditures line 18. Consumable supplies and materials have been moved up, so it was down further last year and renamed. It was office supplies last year. Materials and services expenditures line 19. Legal services have been increased and renamed. It was previously legal fees. This will allow the opportunity for a transition into a retainer attorney contract agreement, as well as provide additional support that requires specialized legal focus. Material and service expenditures line 22, utilities, electricity and gas has been renamed. It was previously fuel and electricity. Materials and services expenditure line 25, insurance, property liability, and auto have been increased and have been renamed. There was also a different in distribution. There was more put in the general fund than in water reserve after talking to our liability insurance company. Materials and services expenditures, line 26. City Hall maintenance has been increased to provide for needed repairs. This may include such projects as roofing repair, police signage, and parking lot maintenance. Materials and services expenditure line 27. Purchase service has been combined with professional services and has been renamed. It was previously City Hall contracted labor. This has been increased to support professional contract services that we have here at City Hall on a regular basis. They're things like janitorial services, window washing, yard maintenance. We would like to do a salary schedule analysis and a job description project. Materials and services expenditures line 29. Professional development has been renamed. It was previously travel and meeting expenses. Materials and services line 32. Professional services have been combined with purchases. And then materials and services line 33. Technology and software have been renamed. City staff has decided to temporarily put a hold on new financial software. However, the account is still needed to support the city's technology needs. We have short-term rental software. We use Zoom, Upcurve, Adobe, iFocus. There's many little software pieces that we use now. Page 5, the building department. As I mentioned earlier, nothing's there. We're gonna phase this out over a 3-year period. Page 6 and 7, the police department, personal services expenditure line 2, salary, chief of police has been adjusted. As the city prepares to hire a new chief of police, a salary increase was imperative to be competitive. The salary placeholder has been assigned at the highest step on the salary schedule. Personal services expenditure line 3, police officers have been adjusted. Last budget cycle was the first implementation of the salary schedule program, which created an unintentional salary discrepancy between the sergeant position and the police officer position. The individual salary schedule lines required a correction to represent job levels and responsibilities more appropriately. And please note that for historical reference, the city had an open unfilled FTE in 2021-22. We didn't want to, we just got to. We had budgeted 3, we just were unable to fill it. It was open and we had interviewed, I know, at least twice in that fiscal year. Personal services expenditures, line 5, 6, and 7, salary allocations have been eliminated. Materials and service supplies expenditure, line 17, legal services has been decreased and renamed. It was previously city attorney fees. Materials and services expenditure, line 18, had a name change to consumable supplies and materials. Materials and supplies, line 21, fuel and vehicle maintenance, again, is renamed. Material and supplies expenditures, line 23, professional development has been increased and renamed. A new hire for the police officer position will need to be trained through the Department of Public Standards, Safety Standards and Training program. This is commonly referred to as the Police Academy. Every candidate that we've looked at the beginning level has not gone through this training yet. So they will actually have to go through, live there and do a more extensive coursework. And it's depending upon our chief of police, they may have to do some special training or certification updates, depending on where they are in their professional career. Materials and services, line 25, uniform / PPE, we're just renaming that. Materials and supplies, line 26, uniform cleaning, and line 28, Clatsop County Drug Task Force has been eliminated. Materials and supplies, line 29, purchase services have been added. These allocations are to hire a professional to assist in updating public safety policy and procedures. This is I believe a manual. It's actual documents that the police department has. So they'll have to contract with a service like Lexipol in order to do something like that. Materials and supplies, line 31, technology and software has been renamed. It was PB Court Software Yearly. Materials and supplies expenditure, line 32, dues and fees have been added, and this is to provide an allocation for police professional service organizations that have membership dues. It's the police department. Page 8 and 9, the fire department. Personal services expenditures, line 3. The salary line has had a name change. It's now the division chief training / operations. Personnel services expenditure, line 7, the conflagration, mobilization, labor, and line 8, the overtime for that. These expenditures are supported by the general fund resources, but as a reimbursement expenditure. So the revenues and the expenditures basically cross each other out. This means that the organization that needs assistance must agree to reimburse the full costs of sending personnel and equipment. The city's budget needs to allocate these expenditures because we actually pay the firefighters and receive the revenue. And so it's a tracking mechanism. And the same allocations have been assigned. I just divided them out. Ironically, most of the time a lot of the time ends up being overtime because they're 24-hour shifts. So you hit overtime pretty quickly on those complex. Materials and supplies expenditures, line 18, consumable supplies and materials have been renamed. Line 19, convention and administrative expenses have been moved to the professional development line. Line 21, utilities and gas have been renamed. Line 22, utilities, water has been added. This account was added after we had approved the budget, so we have been doing this, but it is a fairly new account to us. And we have a water meter there that we were using the water, but we were not paying for it. And we really should be tracking all the water that we're using, even if it's ourselves that uses it, it's still an expense for us. So we've added that in there. Expenditure line 27, professional development has been renamed. And line 36, technology and software have been added. And I moved some of the funds down to from consumable supplies. Non-departmental, there has been some restructuring of accounts and categories. The categories of other requirements have been charged to capital outlay. There is not a category labeled other requirements, so we needed to clear that up. Materials and services, line 4, grants restricted has been increased. So we talked about in the revenue line, here's where the expenditure line is. Line 5, operating repairs and maintenance has been moved from capital outlay and it has been reduced. Expenditures, line 6, sidewalk repair has been eliminated. This type of expenditure can be covered in the State Street Fund, Fund 60. Line 7, grants, low moderate income support has been eliminated. Line 12, grant, American Rescue Plan projects has been added to track expenditures, even though we don't have specific projects established yet. And then transfers, we talked about eliminating those transfers except to the fire apparatus. So that's there. Municipal court, page 11. I think all of these are just renaming as we're trying to get some consistency across the different services. So I don't think anything significant. The consumable supply line's been reduced slightly. Page 12, planning department, line 14, purchase service. Again, I just changed the name. We've reduced mapping, our mapping services for our GIS, which is a wonderful resource that hopefully you all use because we do all the time. We have those dollar amounts and don't anticipate any changes there, so we reduced that amount. Line 21, technology software has been added. And they were moved down from the planning commission expenses. Parks department, page 13. The line 13, parks maintenance and repair has been reduced because the playground project is complete. Line 14, vehicle equipment maintenance has been reduced. Line 15, restroom maintenance has been increased. Line 16, utilities, water has been added, same thing. We do have one irrigation system that we use, and we're tracking the water on that. Line 17, grant parks and bench project. We received a $20,000 check from Charles A. Shea III Charitable Foundation Fund to help us parks and beautification project that they felt was important. So we'll do up with something for that. Line 20, equipment has been reduced because the playground project is complete. Pages 14 and 15 are just summary pages for you to look forward. It just takes the general fund and sorts them and kind of a general overall view of each category. Page 16 are debt service fund 20. The line 1, the beginning fund balance, the cash on hand. It accounts for debt service payment that have rolled over because we have to pay a payment in September before the city receives our property tax. So we have to make sure there's an adequate ending fund and beginning fund balance in order to pay that. And we did have quite a bit of savings from the 2011-21 refinance project. And so we still have some of those funds left that rolled over. But as you can tell by our ending fund balance, it's going to decrease here. Expenditures, line 28, total unappropriated ending fund balance. This represents the amount to make the debt service payment, we have to have that amount to roll over to make those payments before we get our funds in November. So that's what that is. Page 17 is just the debt service payments that we still have left. So we have the two debt water service payments, and those are out by year. And then page 18, the water improvement construction fund, gone, but we have to keep it for historical reference. And then page 19, 20, and 21, which is our water operating fund. This fund accounts for the activities of providing water service. As you know, it's currently undergoing a rate feasibility study. And because this fund is financially unstable, expenditures have been reduced or eliminated whenever possible. Resources 1, our beginning of fund balance. Cash on hand continues to decline as costs to operate, maintain, and improve the water system increase. And according to common industry practices, we should have at least 3 months in there. So anywhere between $265,000 to $300,000 we should have in our beginning fund balance. Resources line 3, water sale receipts. This is the primary source of revenue and represents the collections of fees charged to water utility customers. Actual water receipt collection in 22-23, so this year, will be significantly under budgeted levels, which, as demonstrated by the diminishing cash balance, impact resources. We don't get the money today, we don't have it to pass on for the future. The objective was to see this revenue account increase, so our hopes were that it was going to go up. However, this was an overzealous projection considering there was no increase in rates. So there was really no reason for it to go up other than we were hoping, not that people would use more water, but that they would use more water. This account has been adjusted to reflect more accurate collections. Resources line 5, the transfer from other funds water reserve is a new account. It will provide a revenue stream to adequately support the water operating fund. Without this transfer, the fund will be negative, which again is a violation of budget law, and we have to keep it balanced. Line 6, other miscellaneous has been allocated, and so based on historical revenue, we continue to have this. This is things like contractors break a fire hydrant. We invoice them back and they have to pay it, or a homeowner digs and hits the water line and we have to go repair. It was the city water line. So that's what kind of revenue that is. And we continuously have it based on historical experience. So I'm going to put it in there. There have been a redistribution of full-time equivalency between funds for the 3 public works position. So each one FTE position has the following distribution. 0.1 parks, so 0.10 of their FTE is charged to parks, 0.55 is charged to water, and 0.35 is charged to streets. So how do I get 3.1? Because in the water FTE, we have 1 director, a 0.54 water clerk, and 3.55 FTE water staff. So it's a total of 3.1. Expenditures line 17, legal fees have been allocations eliminated and have been renamed. Line 18, consumable supplies and materials have been reduced. Line 19, printing and advertising has been reduced. Line 21, utilities and gas has been modified and renamed. Vehicle fuel was being charged to this account along with electricity and natural gas. And I have moved the fuel, actual vehicle fuel, to fuel/vehicle maintenance. Line 24, insurance, property liability, and auto has been reduced and renamed. Line 25, the fuel and vehicle, has allocations transferred from the line 21 that I mentioned above. Line 28, water building maintenance has been increased. This account includes such thing as landscaping, again, some restroom cleaning, and the disposal of solid waste debris. Line 29, professional development has been renamed. Line 31, water treatment facility equipment maintenance has been combined with the system operation and repairs. Line 32, system operations and repairs has been modified to include accounts water treatment facility, equipment maintenance, pipes and fittings, and hydrants. Line 34, chemical water analysis has been increased. Services provided are assessing groundwater monitoring, surface water monitoring, and production well data in accordance with Oregon Water Resource Department permit, as well as standard water treatment testing requirements. Line 35, purchase service, I just changed the name. Line 42, changed the name. Line 44, utilities, we added water because the water treatment plant actually has a meter and uses water. Line 45, they put in the American Rescue Funds in the reserve account. They've been moved to the water reserve account. Line 48, waterhead fence, and line 50, field equipment have been eliminated. And then in capital outlay, line 51, water replacement has been reduced. And line 54, to water reserve fund, and line 55 to transfer to public works have been eliminated. Although the approved budget for the 2023 allowed transfers, so we approved transfers this year, we're not going to make those transfers because we're not meeting targets. Page 22 and 23 is our new building fund 40. Again, it's because of the way we have a third party person and they want us to track. So resources 2 through 7 have been modified, renamed, or newly created to adequately identify revenue streams. And revenues have been increased because building rate fees increased as per ordinance. So they went up pretty significantly all the way across the board. And so we're hoping that generates more revenue for that department. It brings us into line with standards for the state of Oregon. Lines 2 through 9, salary and benefits. Again, this isn't a new position. It was a position they had in the general fund. It's split among one person, is split among 3 different funds, but we just moved her to this new fund. Lines 13 through 21 have been modified, renamed, and or newly created to accurately document expenditures. Line 20, technology software, has been added for necessary hardware. They transitioned to an e-permitting, and we may need some more technologically advanced items that we don't have, like maybe some scanners, more memory type things. Those things are very large. Line 21, dues and fees, has been added. We did transition to e-permitting. The e-permitting doesn't cost us on a monthly fee. However, they do charge us for the credit card fees. So we do have to pay all the credit card fees on the processing, and they have some professional membership fees in there too. So we'll charge those to dues and fees. Page 24 and 25, the state revenue sharing. Fund 45. It's an ORS. Revenue sharing to cities require a share of certain revenues of the state of Oregon to be appropriated among and distributed to the cities of Oregon for general purposes. Line 3, state appointment is anticipated to increase based on the growth of the city of Gerhardt's certified population figure. Lines 6 through 22 are grants, local organizations. The proposed just has the amount that the budget officer is recommending get distributed by the budget committee based on grant applications that receive. You have no obligation to grant those grants or those amounts. It's just something that the city of Gerhardt has committed to do with some of their state revenue share as an investment back into the community. It is being presented that there is an unappropriated fund balance, line 28. This builds fund stability and allows a dedicated revenue stream for the next budgeting cycle. You could budget all of that out. You could grant all those grants out. What I will warn you is that if you don't have the funds to give them, they're not gonna get the grant. So I would recommend not maximizing the most amount we think we're gonna get in revenue. Because if we don't get it, then they don't get the money. So I would recommend trying to keep up with our revenue stream on granting out how much we go out. I don't think you need, I wouldn't encourage you to build up that reserve fund. I would just recommend keeping a little bit of money in there. Pages 26 and 27, the state street fund. State street funds are part of the Oregon State shared revenue and support the construction, reconstruction, preservation, maintenance, repair, and improvement of streets and roads. It is distributed to Oregon cities based on a per capita distribution. And revenue sources come from vehicle registrations, title fees, driver's license fees, fuel tax, and weight mile tax. Resources line 4 was a small grant allotment program that we had received through a Gerhardt project. We're still planning on doing that. The scope has been revised a little bit, but we didn't spend any funds yet this year. And so we want to make sure that we have funds to finish that project up. We will be receiving those funds. There is no change in position full-time equivalency, but there is a redistribution here. So again, the distribution state streets changed. So 3 staff at 0.35 is 105. Salary and benefits lines 2 through 10 are tied to FTE. So when FTE increases, payroll costs increase proportionately. So those numbers look like they jumped up a lot higher, but it was the redistribution in FTE. Workers' compensation line 5. The city has recently transitioned to SAFE. We had a different insurance carrier previously, and CIS transitioned a partnership with the state of Oregon SAFE program. They have rates a little bit differently, and this is only our 2nd year into it, so they're getting used to us and our experience modifier and other things like that. State streets happen to be extremely high. So that's reflected in the budget. Line 14, materials and services, and line 15 were previously contracted services, have been adjusted for allocations due to the sidewalk program. So we just kind of adjusted those where we think the funds are most likely needed. We will probably contract out, so we will probably need more money in purchase services. Line 17, audit has been removed. The state street does not require any special auditing services. And then capital outlay, line 21, equipment has been increased. Page 28, water resource, fund 71. This fund, under the authority of chapter 280, financing of the local public projects and improvements, was passed by an ordinance in 2003. To establish a financial reserve fund for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, repairing, extending, and improving the water system of Gerhardt in part or in whole. The primary revenue source has been transfers from the water operating fund. Since 2018, over 400,000 has been transferred. However, due to the instability of Fund 30, there will be no resources transferred in the current year, nor in the proposed budget year. Expenditures line 12 through 14, materials and services have been added. That category wasn't in there before, so we've added that. Capital outlay expenditures line 16, improving water systems have been adjusted. There are no specific projects scheduled. Line 17 is our grant, so that we can have it in there so that we can make sure that we're documenting. Investments in improving water infrastructure is one of the eligible areas, but we don't have a specific project designated yet. Lines 19 through 21, other requirements have been added to support appropriations in this category. Transfers, yeah. Transfers, line 20 to operating funds. The city has an obligation. This is our transfer that we talked about, so it's a new line item there. Page 29, police car reserve fund. Again, this was an ordinance that was passed in 1997 to provide financial stability for maintaining, repairing, and replacing police cars. We just bought a police car. There are adequate funds in there. You need the funds in the general fund to support other police activities like training and some other things. So we've eliminated for this just for this next year. Allocations have been made, however, there are no specific purchases at this time, but allocating it allows them that if something needed, they needed something new in the police department, vehicle related, then they would have access to be able to come to the council and request the use of those funds. Page 30, fire apparatus. Again, this was passed by an ordinance in 2003 for maintaining, repairing, and replacing fire apparatus. The primary revenue source is a transfer from the general fund. They don't necessarily anticipate buying any equipment next year, but again, we wanted to make sure that they have the ability to do that and come before the council, so their allocations have been made. Page 31, the hazardous mitigation. This is again ordinance 880 from 2014. Establishes a financial reserve for the purpose of pre-disaster mitigation used for hazardous mitigation planning and projects to protect life and property for future natural disasters. A grant allocation has been added. We don't necessarily have a specific project in mind, but it seems every year we regularly are able to find something to apply for and receive. So I put a grant award in there. And the primary revenue source has been a transfer from the general fund. And because they have an adequate fund balance and the general fund needs the funds, we're not going to transfer next year. Expenditures have been allocated, again, but no special project scheduled. Page 32, Public Works Major Equipment Reserve Fund, an ordinance 757, 2002. Hereby establishing a financial reserve for the purpose of purchasing, maintaining, repairing, and replacing major public equipment. The primary revenue source for this was the water fund. But as we talked about, the water fund can't really afford to be transferring money in there, so we're not going to do it. But again, we allocate funds for money that's in there that they could spend. Page 33, the Building Reserve Fund, ordinance 806 in 2007, hereby establishes a financial reserve for the purpose of purchasing, repairing, and replacing city buildings. Primary source has been the general fund, but again, we're not going to be transferring any funds in there. Page 34, the Gerhardt Road District. The Gerhardt Road District is its own taxing entity. I had called the county. It has been part of Gerhardt's taxing district as long as they have record. You guys also serve as the Gerhardt, it's part of our budget, and so you also serve as the Gerhardt Road Budget Committee based on the budget that's in there. Road district and road assessment plans was created by an area resident vote with the purpose of allowing the city of Gerhardt to levy a property tax to fund maintenance and improved roads. With property tax, we're budgeting 3% with a reduction for discounts and other uncollectible amounts. Line 4, county land sales, it was added because there was a historical reference. We didn't have it before, but we had received funds, so we had to add a line in there because of historical reference. Expenditures have been allocated, but no specific projects have been scheduled in there now. They do paving a lot of times out of their sectional paving that is needed in areas. Page 35, our supplemental salary information. This is the work in progress. We want to try to make this understandable and not confuse things. It's just to provide some additional data on salaries. The division chief operations has been renamed. It was firefighter previously in the other budget. The distribution of annualized salary shows all positions, the salary, which includes certification and merit pays, amount budgeted, and the distribution of FTE by fund. So it takes all the information and just kind of sums it up in one little sheet based on what's in the budget. The salary schedule shows the position, steps, and the annual amount based on anniversary date. So there's no people, I mean, there's people in there, but it's just the shell of salaries based out on a step process. Please note that any individual staff that is eligible for steps will move on the salary schedule based on their anniversary date, not the budgeted period of July 1 through June 30. So the salary schedule amounts will not always match because they're jumping mid-year. So one of them is July 1 to June 30. One of them is based on whatever day in the year they get it. So those who have maxed out on the steps, they'll have the same salary because they're not moving throughout the year, but everybody else moves mid-year. So that was confusing last year to some people. So I just wanted to bring that up. And the salary amounts have been rounded to whole numbers. No need to have pennies. Certification and merit increases are given for specialized certification or merit longevity increases. The amounts are in the distribution of annualized salary, so they show up in this one, but they are not on the salary schedule. They have their own little thing down here. These types of payments are flat annualized amounts divided equally over the pay cycle, and so they're not impacted by COLA. So they don't go up by that COLA amount. It's a flat amount that they get annually. And then as per the employee handbook, a salary schedule will be established for each job. The schedule will include a minimum and maximum of salary for each job with 7 steps. Employees will receive step increases on the anniversary of the date of hire. Employees who obtain 10, 15, 20 years of service or additional 5-year increments shall be eligible for a merit increase after evaluation in addition to the annual COLA amounts. Supplemental information is just a lot of legal document stuff that we have to put in the budget. Our legal notices will add some other things as each step moves along. And so our final proposed one will have everything in it all along. And that is our proposed budget. And now it's your job to go back and think about it. Please ask questions, call me, come in, make an appointment, whatever you would like, email me. And we will work through anything that you are wondering about. Are there any questions?
What is the population of Earhart?
1879, I think.
1879?
Yeah.
And is that full-time residents or full-time?
Well, according to the census, yes, that's full time. We don't count part-time residents here. We had a 22% increase over the last census as well, probably over the last 5 years, but over the last 10, actually.
And that includes renters, I assume.
Yes, it does.
So with renters, you're not getting quite the income. This is a question. Are you not getting quite the income that you would be getting from a homeowner, single family homeowners per se?
The property taxes are paid by the homeowner or the property owner, and whether you're a rental or not, the property itself pays those taxes.
So it's the same.
Correct, but we didn't, I think that maybe what you might be getting at, or what is true, is that we did have a lot more people spending time in the Earhart. And they have their second homes, they've kind of filled those up, but maybe they haven't, instead of living here, they're just spending more time. That has been one of the reasons for some of the increase in our expenses lately as well. We seem to have more people in Earhart, even a little bit beyond what our census shows.
So how do you take that into account? I mean, how do you say, okay, well, there were 10 people who are spending more time here? I mean, how do you even think about that in a budget?
Well, I think that you're seeing some of that, how do you think about that in regards to the water, the water fund? The expenses that we've seen over the last 3 years due to COVID and things like that, we didn't anticipate. We didn't know that those things would happen. And we couldn't guess that there would be a 50% increase in everything that we purchased. And so this has been some time coming. So what Justine does is she gets a feeling for this and starts making those adjustments. And I will say the best move that I made in this entire budget was to find Justine. She's been amazing. And having somebody who's concentrating on this so much, we're able to anticipate some of these things better than we have done before. But it is some guesswork.
So you might have said this, and I apologize if you did. When was the last time water rates were raised?
2013, December of 2013, so it's coming up on 10 years. And so, you know, no rate increases, but for over the last 10 years, every single thing has gone
And
up.
so do our costs, like if we buy the water from Warrenton, have they raised how much we have to pay them?
Yes.
That is one of the cost expenses, yes. And then just the cost of the chemicals to make the water, the electricity, the fuel. Yeah. But we think that with a rate increase, we should be able to get things back into place. The rate increase will be, I think, you know, somewhere between 15 and 20%. But when you look at Gearhart's water rates, you won't find any lower water rates across Oregon pretty well, or otherwise, other than those that are just living off creek water academy. So it is time. We did try to keep these rates lower over the period of time that people were paying extra taxes to pay for the water treatment facility. And so that's one of the things we're trying to maintain. We were very efficient within the water treatment facility for many years. It was working, but until recently, things really started getting us hard. But we think we can get beyond that. It's something that's solvable.
So Warrenton Water is building a new water treatment plant, is that correct?
They're looking at potentially adding on to their water treatment with another reservoir. And so they're in the middle of designing and costing that out. It's going to cost them millions of dollars to do so. I've talked to the city of Warrenton, and we're going to maintain our water contract for another year. But after that, they're going to want to get into conversations about raising our rates as well.
And that's where it's going.
The other thing that they talked about was also potentially adding on their own system development charges, so that anytime that we have a home or something in there, that a portion of that money goes towards them as well. Which new construction would pay for that through system development charges. But that's all, we don't know, you know, we're talking about all of these things and those budgets haven't been completed yet.
And I've asked this before, and I'll just ask it again. Has the city of Gearhart ever considered enforcing system development fees on new facilities?
That conversation is going to happen during the water rate conversation. So that is a factor in that, and that may be added by the city council, as long as we can show where those monies are going to be used.
Because I think as we're growing so fast in our population, that we will need more resources, and that to me would just be perfect. So thank you.
Yeah, but the whole thing is that how much land do we have in order to grow?
Well, we have our 20-year supply, according to Department of Land Conservation and Development. By their calculations and properties that are available throughout Gearhart, that a urban growth boundary expansion is not applicable at the moment. A lot of those pieces of property, though, are owned by people that just haven't moved on, they've sat on them for years and things like that. Some of them are a little bit constrained and difficult to build on, but we are running out of buildable lands.
Yeah,
And that will happen over time. There will be a period of time once we can prove we do not have a 20-year supply, that we, the city or the state will require us to start looking at urban growth boundary expansion, bringing in more land into the city of Gearhart. But there's really not a lot that we can move into. So that's a diminishing return over time, and we're keeping an eye on it.
what's to keep us from telling the state of Oregon we're big enough? We don't want to expand our urban growth boundary.
That's all politics when you get there. Possible, absolutely. I'm not advocating for or speaking up against, you know, the growth boundary extension at this time, but I think it speaks to some of the changes that we've seen.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only place we can go is north.
We have been, in other expenses, you know, you realize how much building we've been doing, but also all of that building has been in kind of some challenging pieces of property around town. So the water expenses to get water to these places has increased as well. But yeah, we're running out and it'll be a matter of time. But we'll have more to report on that in the future as well.
And in relationship to Warrenton, where's their new reservoir gonna go up here on the headworks?
I don't know yet. I don't know.
And all the houses that are on, I mean, all the finger spurs that we've annexed in along the highway there, those are all on Warrenton water, correct?
Along the highway, no, those are all pure water. Everything from the,
Dairy Lane.
yeah, so you got the dairy line is the end on the south side, and then McCormick Garden Road. People that are on the west side of McCormick Garden Road are on Pure Water,
Correct.
and on the east side, they are on Warrenton Water, and that's kind of the
But that's
dividing line.
county, that's county. East side of McCormick Gardens Road is county.
Yeah, and they take Warrenton Water,
Yeah.
so everything basically west of McCormick Garden Road is Deer Water.
Yeah, but our connection, you know, we come from here, we come down through Gerhard.
Mhm.
Right, we come down McCormick Gardens Road. There's a tie-in right there across the street where the old station used to be. And we go on out on the west side of McCormick Gardens Road and then on up to the reservoir. Okay, what I'm saying is out on the highway north of Island Road, where all those finger spurs are. Did they get theirs off of the Warrenton main line that goes up the highway or off of Gerhard?
Gerhard. It's all Gerhard's infrastructure from McCormick Garden Road west. And north.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
And it's a good deal for Warrenton. I mean, they charge us their water rates, and we maintain the entire system. So there's some negotiations there for sure, but, we're a good customer. And we have a good relationship with Warrenton. I think that needs to be said as well. So I'm looking forward to working with them. We're also working on a project that's very near and dear to the mayor's heart in regards to looking at water resources division. And I had a very good meeting with an attorney today about what we can do to increase our water capacity, so we don't have to buy so much from Warrenton, if at all.
so there's gonna come a point where Warrenton is gonna expand beyond what it is I mean, they pull from Lewis Clark River.
Currently, they have a moratorium on building in Warrenton for subdivisions, new subdivisions anyway, but anything that's platted is all right. Because they are concerned that they're gonna run out of water in 20, I don't want to say exactly. I think,
28,
2030 something. is what they're
32.
concerned about. Yeah, somewhere near there, I can't recall. And that's due to salmon habitat pulling from the river and all those things.
well, I mean, they gotta be careful about how much water they take out of Lewis Clark.
The nice thing is that together, we're pretty resilient. We can share, we can back up within Seaside, Surfline, Warrenton, here.
I'd like to follow up on Sharon's question a little bit. If we had more people here, more people expected, would that increase much the revenue on water because you had more people using it?
It can, where the largest increases that I've seen in water is during the summer months if it's dry. People tend to be generous with their spigot or green, yeah. I mean, it seems ironic because we live in a wet area, but some people, always stay in their units, they never go over. But we have a lot of people and it ends up very quickly in the summer months. So when people spend more time here, they tend to plant more, tend to appreciate that greenery more, tend to have water rates.
But you didn't have appreciable increase in revenue in the last 2 or 3 years with increased population.
No.
No, and part of that can be weather-based as well.
So when you have more population than you used to, how does that impact on the city's expenditure? So many of these things are fixed costs. Where are the expenditures that increase based on the number of people that are living?
Well, we're a service industry. You know, it's really how you look at it. Should we provide piping, we provide water services and things like that, but we have, you know, time that they walk into City Hall, into going out and looking at their homes, we're there to serve them. So labor, you know, labor and overtime, when we look at the increased amount of fire calls that we had over last year, which was incredible. When we look at the police department, you know, what they've been dealing with and that sort of thing, spending a lot of overtime with that. Although that's also, you know, from not having the third officer as well. With Public Works, we get a lot of requests every day. I mean, we're dispatching, Miss Justine here dispatches our Public Works guys umpteen times a day to take care of those little things. And all of that has gotten busier. The other thing that's gotten busier is the administrative. You know, you see how many extra city council meetings, how many extra work sessions and all that we've been doing. That's also been unprecedented for DR. So all of this is kind of
Good, then when I add more, it will be anticipated.
we did write it into the budget. So. You know, I hope that helps, but it's all of those things together. Police, fire, public works, city administrative, it all just has increased. It's a completely different city than when I started here 11 years ago. Used to get 2 or 3 meals a day.
Increase garbage pickup
A day.
and increase, and another thing people are, when there are more people here, people are more observant when they're walking. They notice more things that need attention or repair. Whereas when you don't have as many people, they might not walk down that trail very much, or they might not use that path as often. So more people definitely start putting more usage on their resources.
I didn't pick up on where you're putting the contract expense for the police in the budget. I'm sorry.
It is the $50,000 line under professional services, purchase services.
In
It is,
the police fund.
yeah, page 6, line 23. It went from 3,500 budgeted to 52,000. And then the purchase service down below, that's under professional development. And then under purchase services, that is the lexical safety manual.
It's the police policy and procedure.
Right.
Anything else we can help you with? Any big questions as you go through this? This is some of the dollar amount.
Time to look at it.
Yes.
Justine specializes in the money and how it flows. She's also learning a lot about operations. I spend more time on operations between the two of us. If you go through Justine, you'll get your questions answered for you.
Master of money.
It's a nice way to show it off.
So what are the next steps? How does the process?
So next steps is we are required by Oregon budget law to have public comment, which we would want. So we have another meeting, which is unusual for Gerhart. Normally you only have one meeting and you sit through it and you decide and then you vote. But I think we should have at least some time between the time you get it and that we approve it. So that you can think about it, kind of ingest it and ask questions. Then we will come back on Thursday, May 4th, 6 o'clock. We will do the state revenue share public hearing. So you will decide as a committee how you think those grants should be distributed out. And then we will move to approve the meeting, the budget, or have another meeting.
So if somebody's applying for a grant, they're due on the 24th, right? So
Correct.
you won't know until next week how many of those we have.
Correct.
Have you received some already?
Yes, quite a few. Yeah, some of the regular people who apply.
So we can expect that's gonna be a little time consuming, that meeting.
It could be time consuming. We are gonna give them in advance and some in advance, but then they usually, they can come and speak during the public hearing. So that just takes a little bit more time.
And we're getting the financials.
They're supposed to submit a budget. That's part of the requirement, correct? Yes.
We have further discussion on the budget at that meeting.
Correct. The public can comment, we can talk and comment and make adjustments if needed. And then you make a recommendation as a budget committee, and then in June, the council looks at what was presented by the budget committee and either approves or modifies.
And one more question on
Sure.
the, on the general fund, so page 3, line 19, legal services. I probably ask it next time we met, I may as well ask it now, but the, not quite doubling, but what anticipated legal services would be? Because nothing else was pulled into there, right? So what additional legal services do you think would be required?
We do have some resources that we're looking at for working with our community members in need. So we do anticipate having some specialized legal counsel for dealing, making sure that everything is on the right step, progress there.
Currently, we're in the middle of that with, Chad Jacobs, one of our, a different attorney with a specialty.
Yeah.
And then, do you want to talk about our city attorney?
Well, sure, and then there's a possibility of changing the way that we use our city attorney, rather than going to a monthly billing, to have somebody on our retainer. And then that they're available for us. We think that that might be more efficient, so we're playing around with that this year as well. And we'll have more to report. The other thing that might be coming up here soon is we've been instructed to start looking more heavily into our water rights, for the conversation that we just had, and that can benefit us down the way as well. And for that would be a specialized water attorney. Okay, so.
Our attorney's not super punctual at invoicing us. So historical data
It's good as
is
a loss.
not always accurate. He provides the service, he just doesn't seem to always bill us on a timely fashion.
Does that mean he likes us so much? that sometimes we
No, we get billed, it's just all at once.
Bookkeeping services.
And thank you, I was just kind of curious about that category.
And anything else that might come up, land use usually also sometimes brings in the need for different types of attorneys as well. And that you never know what you're gonna get through a year of dealing with things.
I know last year, there was an anticipated increase because of the fire bond and legal fees required on the land potential and then the facility itself. So I know it went up last year quite a bit from what it was even the year before.
Which we didn't really use much of any of that.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, kind of to Eric's question that he asked in our last year's meeting was, we know what's adopted budget, but there's no real clear expenditures by each category. So.
You can look, one resource is you can look at our monthly finance report.
Yeah.
It has all of those accounts for current to date.
Year to day, yeah.
So you could look and find it's the line item in there and see.
Okay.
For actual of what's going on, like right as of today. Just remember, we're not out, whole year isn't there yet, so project 2 more months out, but yeah, every month they're posted out there. I can send you a current one if you were interested, just let me know.
And this year we added the percentage so you can see, like, we're at third trimester of the fiscal year, and you can see how much we spent, so it helps you anticipate what you're going to need for the remaining budget, and then next year how much you would have to increase by.
I'd appreciate that, yeah,
Sure,
if
yeah,
you're willing, because if you
Yeah,
have,
absolutely.
I'm sure I can find it, but if you have ready
Yeah,
access,
easy, and I can do it as of today,
okay.
as of most current, so,
Yeah, and
Yeah,
just
easy.
email that to each of them.
absolutely, I'll send it to everybody.
Is there a page here that I'm overlooking, but I don't think I am that summarizes, shows a summary sheet of expenditures and revenue from all of the departments, all on one page. So you can see the entire city budget kind of by department at a glance.
We don't have that document in this phase in the proposed.
Mhm.
I have a sheet that I can send you too, if you're interested in seeing that. We have to do a legal document once you guys approve. We do a legalized document that goes into the newspaper that the entire citizens can see. And that has it all on one page, but it's not until the
Final step.
middle step, because it's after the budget, but before the city council approves it.
So you're saying anything you put on this now would be like proposed, they're not hard, fast
And I can
numbers.
do that, yeah. I mean, I have one that's all the years back.
So it would be something you'd want to disseminate, see
And
this
take a
is
look at
actually,
page
this
14
is.
and 15 as well.
I'm sorry.
Just general
14 and
fund.
15,
Yeah, right, but that's just per, like, on page 15, that's just the general fund.
correct.
Yeah, you don't have everything. That's
Yeah.
really easy to do, Eric. If you want that too, I have that.
I mean, then let's just see what it really costs to run the city entirely, for all these funds combined.
Yeah, easy. I have that document. I can send.
I mean, clearly we can see it page by page, but it'd be nice to see that on one page or two. Is there any further discussion? More questions, anything for the good of the order? Time for me to move to adjourn.
Absolutely.
If I hear a move, I hear
A motion,
a motion.
I motion.
and I was saying,
All in favor? I'm not even sure that's something you vote on, is it?
So you
Never
see,
Mr. Halpern. Thank you. And so does this carry over to the next year, or we do this again the next year? No.
you are officially the president and all the way. Yes. You are excellent in that role. Yes, your official duties to extend.
and so you guys are gonna help Sharon with the cut and paste.
Yeah.
of the
I mean,
notes.
normally we just cut them and paste them.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you guys for doing that for us.